We feel like no matter what you do, you are a creative and you can be creative. Today we're here with our friend, our longtime friend, supporter, and all the good things that we could possibly say about this person, Mark Weishart. Let's talk about it.
You can't judge and create at the same time.
If you want to get to this point, you have to listen. There's rules in place for a reason.
No, I think we were created by the creator to be creative.
Yeah.
How you come up with your ideas will greatly depend on if you understand the way you learn best.
You'll do a spec, like let's say you want to do something with Nike, you just create a mock Nike commercial. It's like, look, this is what we could do.
Being creative is not one, it's not a handful of things.
The day that I started knowing I was I had a really creative flair was when Disney started calling me.
Let's talk about it.
Shorts, want to do this?
No.
I want to give people a show.
I see your thigh a little bit, but it's just thigh, it's not like...
How my quads look when I go like this?
Yeah.
Just pull them all the way up. Just go for it.
Come on, let's go.
Hold on. Get the Speedo out.
No,
there we go.
Okay.
Let's go get a Speedo.
Make sure I'm recording.
You know that time you got up?
No, I've done it in 2 podcasts because I had this sudden
So you
fear
hit record?
I'm not recording. Yes, it's
It's
red.
recording, it's red.
It's red, it's red, it's red.
Okay. We all know she's
I've
recording.
only done that twice.
It's the worst.
My dad finished his whole message. I'm like, oh, Dad, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Or I get home and I'm like, what happened to the message? Oh.
Man, years
man.
ago when we were filming weddings, I missed the bride coming down the aisle. I'm like, that's the point of the whole day.
There you go.
This looks good.
It's
But
like
the thing is, they hired us again for their daughter.
For the sister's wedding, yeah.
And they were like, listen,
I'm traumatized from that.
Make sure you shoot the bride. They made a whole joke about it. It's like the whole...
It's like 15 years and
Yeah.
I'm still traumatized by it.
And then what we'll do, so at the end of it, we'll do
That's
the
why
intro.
I hated weddings so much.
Oh, man.
They were so much pressure.
But you know what? I'll say that there's a lizard up there. Shooting
sunbathing.
weddings made it way easier for us to do all this stuff now.
Really?
Because-
you just picked the hardest thing right off the bat.
Yeah, because you get one chance to do that. And like
Yeah.
when we shoot this time, something you have multiple takes, you're like, oh yeah, we can do it more than once.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah.
So
Think about these days, back when I started weddings, you had 36 shots on a roll, and then you'd change them out, or you'd have your second camera. And then after the wedding's over with, you go take them, and 2 weeks later, you get everything back, and you
hope that
look at it and go, oh, God, please.
You're just like, well, I screwed that one up.
Please, God.
Man, I want to talk about that too, how like just creativity has changed. Like being a creative has changed from, but really quick,
gosh.
so we're talking about the church.
Yeah.
That's how we first met.
Yeah.
Is at the church on 7th.
How you guys met.
Yeah, us.
Yep.
Yeah.
7th. And man.
I think it was just you and 2 sisters.
Yeah,
at
it was
that
just
point in time.
me, Rhea, and Chelsea.
Yep. And then Taxi was born,
Yep.
and then Jesse.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Good memory.
ooh, ma.
Man, I know.
How do you just have that many kids?
Bop them out.
I know,
A
right?
litter. Oh yeah,
I have
we
a friend
litter.
who's got 15.
Wow.
What?
And she's as skinny as you are. So
Wow.
it's like, and she hasn't had a labor that lasted more than 3 hours. Everybody hates her. Every woman I know hates her. So it's like,
Bro, people hate
Hey,
you.
lady. Yeah.
Because she
I
has
know.
she has twins, and people are like, how?
I'm like, it's been 7 years. Is that still?
But
no, it is.
but listen,
Yeah.
some people,
Yeah.
you know how I am. I'm
been
going to try
long
not to say.
enough.
I always get in trouble from her for
They're
saying
just-
stuff I shouldn't say.
Yeah.
But
There are women who just never recover from pregnancy.
Yeah.
It's that hard on your body. I mean, I watched Trish go through both of them, and I'm like, she's a goddess.
Man.
She's a deity to me. So, like, I don't know how you did that.
if I was a woman, bro, we wouldn't have any.
My
kids.
great grandma had 12,
Hell no.
and those are
12.
to put it nice. Those are the ones that she.
so she had miscarriages?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I don't, it was my great grandma, so
Yeah.
I've never been old enough to be like,
My grandma was
How
13
many?
when she got married.
what?
That's crazy.
13. I think about 13 right now. I'm like, there's no.
You don't know enough.
Yeah. Well, I think
God,
about
they
me
would
getting
arrest
married
you.
at
Like,
19.
Yes.
I was 19 when we got married. And
19?
13, isn't that weird?
Yeah. No, I mean, 19 is awesome.
Imagine a girl's coming and say they want to get married at 19.
I'm like, that's
I'm like, oh, I don't
that's
know.
12 years from now.
They're like, Mommy, you did it. That's exactly what's going to happen.
That's the one
no, that is-
thing that I'm like.
There's a different
the-
standard now.
That's what the only thing I could think of is times were different then.
And that's so what something like our parents
I
would
know,
say.
I know. And I
Man.
hated that, but that's
It's the
probably going to
truth.
be what it is.
So church. And then, do you remember we did the holiday hoedown?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I actually have that.
I love that so much.
We recorded it, and I gave a copy to Steve and Debbie the other day. That was so much fun. We
Yes.
did so many creative things in that whole thing.
Bro, you taught me lessons during that, and when you taught me how to play drums too. You taught me lessons. The first one was that usually when I remember we got to use the cap guns. Remember the guns you had that
Oh,
had
yeah,
the little
yeah,
thing?
yeah.
And you said, don't shoot these off now because like people were coming in, wait till it's time to do it. I, of course, I was a child. I wasn't a child. I was just ornery. And I did it anyways. I was like, he's not going to know I did it. Bro, you knew I did it. And not only that, so we had to do the thing we
But
did.
this was inside the church?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. So you have to, like we did, because she went to Baptist church. So
Right,
she
I
doesn't know
remember.
about like the
It
whole
was just
like,
everybody sit down and
yeah,
shut
yeah.
up.
So
Wasn't
we
that
did
where you guys
productions in.
graduated from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But so I remember shooting that off, and then I still remember this day. You came to me like, "Yep, give it here," and like, so I had to do my whole thing without a gun. I was like, never again will I not look. Because I think so many times.
Taught you obedience.
Yes, it really did. Because like
Aw.
our parents, like they were like really strict.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're like, oh, they'll give me
When
one
it
chance.
comes from somewhere else,
Yeah, I was like,
it's
Oh.
traumatizing.
yeah. It wasn't traumatizing, but like, okay, I need to actually listen. When I'm like a part of something, listen if you want to like. And then drums. I used to be able to play the drums towards the end of the service, but the one requirement was, hey, make sure you wear like a button up. So you look, you know what I'm saying? And it wasn't, you didn't say, hey, you have to wear a suit. It wasn't a, hey, you have to wear a certain thing, just a button up. Everyone has a button up. I would come. I remember one time I came after like maybe football practice or something like that, and I had like a t-shirt, and you're like, well, guess you're not gonna, I was like, man. I was like, and it just taught me that there's some things to where if you want to get to this point, you have to listen. There's rules in place for a reason. And like looking back now, I'm like, yeah, you don't want to be up there looking like a slob. You were actually making me
Right.
Yeah.
make sure I didn't look like ridiculous up there in the t-shirt while everyone else is nice. And I was
Yeah.
like, man, because sometimes, like when you're a kid, when I was like, this is the worst thing ever. But now looking back, I'm like, man, that was
How
actually.
dare you?
But it was. I still remember those moments. I'm like, man. So
But you were such a good kid. I mean, I spent 13 years in youth as a youth pastor, and I know bad kids, and they were, some of them were really tough. And I've been to court, and I've been to, stood in between the police officer and them. You were an amazing kid. Trust me, you were a really, really good kid.
But you taught me so much stuff, like growing up. And I think that's dope. And I'm like, I always try to make sure I give people their flowers before it's too late. So just know that, like, I think you were a big part of
There you go.
where I'm at now.
But a lot of that was your fault because, and I use fault loosely there, because you were so hungry. Oh my gosh, you wanted to learn everything about everything.
He is still like that.
I know, and that's what drives you. It's your personality.
Yeah.
So, but
I still
man,
blame you.
You what?
I blame you for all that.
Oh,
still.
okay.
So, but thank you. And then Heather, so you met Heather, the first time you met her was on our wedding day, right? Did you
No,
meet
no,
her?
Rehearsal.
no,
It was the rehearsal.
Yeah.
You didn't meet her before.
No, I thought I had met. There was a graduation, and I thought I had met her at the graduation
Maybe. That could be.
because I remembered.
But
It
no,
could have
because
been.
we didn't graduate together.
No, I know, but I probably
she was
went
at
to
the
your
school.
graduation because it was like same school. So I went to like
Yep.
everybody goes to all the graduations. and
Okay.
So I
everything.
vaguely have a memory there, but then at the wedding, at the big
So,
one.
people that don't know, you married us, which was
Yeah.
dope. And
was
you,
fun.
Heather brought
Yeah.
pictures.
And you guys got married in December.
Yep.
Yes.
And like there were Christmas trees and
Yep.
everything. I was like, how brilliant is
Yes.
that?
So that people are like, oh, you like Christmas? Like, no, we're obsessed with Christmas.
Yeah.
Like, we're still that way.
Oh,
Yeah. Still
fun.
was super obsessed with Christmas. And yeah, it was a weird, I don't know if we ever told you this. So the whole no marriage license thing, she just hates when I talk about this stuff.
We
But
brought it up in a
Yeah.
previous podcast.
so I can talk about it now, right?
Oh, did you? Okay.
Is my mic good? Is it on the wrong side or is it good?
Oh yeah, it's still good.
Okay. See, like this will still be in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we didn't have a marriage license, the whole thing, whatever.
Which was not your fault.
Yeah, I still feel like if you're counseling someone, you should say, hey, look,
Yes.
do this.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Let's be clear, it wasn't his fault.
yeah.
It
But
was
anyways,
Another party. Who is not here?
People who did your
I don't know if we
counseling,
told you
so.
this, but when we got back, they made us sign these papers to resign. But they also said, the pastor at the time said, hey, listen, because you did this, like you went off, you were in sin, blah, 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 the rest of your marriage is going to probably be cursed.
Whoa.
And I was like, I don't know if we've ever told you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we've told you that. I was like,
Wow.
and I think God knew not to let me be as the person I am now back then, because I probably would have gotten a lot of trouble from like just him saying something like that.
Yeah.
But like I look at it
What a
now, I'm like,
horrible
man,
thing to say, man.
Yeah. Especially to kids, because
Yeah.
I think for a while I was in my head about it. I was like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like if our marriage is cursed, like what's going to
God,
happen
right.
or not
That's
happen?
so-
And then
What a horrible thing to say.
yeah, but now on the other side of it, of course, I'm like,
Because you're so impressionable at that
Right.
time frame, you're
Right.
like, oh, okay, well,
Right,
we'll just
man.
give up now.
yes. I was
Right.
like, are you kidding
Yeah.
me? Do you want to show the
No.
pictures?
yeah, I brought
I know
some
you wanted to.
photos. These are point and shoot or
Yeah, back then, not
Point and
digital.
like
shoot.
disposable. Just a few of them. They're
Oh, it's
great
us.
quality, as you can see.
Nice.
But I just thought it would be.
Gosh, you look identical.
Isn't that? It's so.
Heather still looks good.
Eugene,
Yeah.
you got good DNA,
I'm trying to
man.
figure out my mic. It's weird looking.
No, it's there. You can't
Aw.
see it.
Oh, nice. The kiss.
Oh.
Wow. I like your hair color now, too.
Oh, thanks.
Wow. Oh, I love your dress.
Oh, I still love my
so
dress too.
pretty. I forgot that you had like the red.
Yeah.
Because
Because that
Christmas.
just never happens, ever.
Yeah.
And there's, oh, hey, I had hair back then. That's amazing. Wow, I had bangs and hair and everything. And there's kicker. I got that
oh, yeah,
hat.
we went to I'm trying to think where that was. Was it Hollywood Studios?
It was at the place where you could eat in the car.
And it's like the car.
Oh,
and you
yeah,
have
yeah.
Yeah.
Hollywood and Vine. Not Hollywood and Vine. It's in studios. Oh, man. My
And they
brain does
play
this
play
nowadays.
movies and all that stuff.
Yeah. That was, I don't
Very
know if I
fun.
told you, that was my first time at Disney World.
Oh, really?
Like my entire childhood. I wanted to go there, wanted to live there,
Wow.
work, all the things. And
Well,
that was my first
that was a great first place to go.
Yeah.
It really is.
So I was like, we're driving up here, like, man, what can we? Because there's so many things that we felt like we could talk to you about.
Mm,
I think the biggest thing is, and we kind of alluded to it earlier, like just being a creative. Because
yeah.
you taught me how to play drums. Even that production, like you came up with a lot. Like you've always, to me, come off like you create. That's just it's in your DNA.
Do you remember the Pentecost?
Yes. Oh yeah.
That was one of the best things
I love that.
we've ever done. That was so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at it the other day, and you guys were jumping off onto the pad. and
Yes.
the roller skaters and the kid on the bike, and it was like biblical times. We did it right. It was
Yeah.
like- that was one of the
What
funnest
is
things we
this?
ever did.
What is this? Because I don't know about it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we did this.
You
It
guys
was
are go off talking. I'm like,
what we decided to do
Was it
was we decided not to do an Easter program that year because everybody did
Okay.
an Easter program. What we
Sure.
decided to do was a Pentecost. 40 days later, the Pentecost.
Yeah.
And that's the way everybody celebrates. Even
Right.
Jewish people celebrate Pentecost. And so what we did was I wrote this script that included almost all secular music. And it was secular music, what I call soul music, which is it's something that has a deeper message, and we can use it because of the deeper message. And then I wrote the script around it. But there was one point where I hired a ballerina to come in and do some really cool stuff.
Man, I remember that.
We had one kid, I mean, and they're all dressed up in biblical costumes, and we made we had a bike that was made up to look biblical. I don't know how you do that, but he was jumping up in the air and stuff, and then there were kids on rollerblades that were flying around really
I remember
fast.
that.
And it was just this really, and the crazy part is, and I think you met this guy, as the guy who did the old Epcot fireworks show,
I know you're talking
Reflections of Earth. We used that soundtrack
I
for
remember
it.
that,
And it was
bro.
so much fun. It was just a blast.
Man.
So,
Bro, how are you just so creative though? That's my question. 'Cause I feel like you're so like, do you feel like it's just a DNA thing, or did you learn? Do you think people can learn to be
oh
creative?
gosh, yeah, absolutely. Everybody can learn. You know, I think there's a couple of different things. Like, for instance, you can be talented. And if you're talented, that means that somehow you've either been to school, you grew up singing or playing something, you learned it in band, you learned it in choir. If you're talented, you learn that. But if you're gifted, that's just something that comes out of you. Like you don't even remember not doing it, like singing well or playing and things like that. So people who are talented and people who are gifted, everybody's like, oh, I can't do that. Well, maybe you're not gifted, but everybody can learn something about something. So,
And did you learn it, or do you feel like you were just gifted to be creative?
I grew up in a musical family, so I grew up, and before I was even able to know how to sing, I was singing and I was playing. I literally, my very first drumsticks, I took 2 2x2s and my dad's rasp, and I filed my first set of drumsticks, and then I played my mom's Tupperware.
Wow.
Tupperware's responsible for my, it was like, oh, that big bowl, that was a great bass, So, but that was the thing. So I think I grew up in a very musical family. So we were like the Christian Von Trapp family.
I love that.
So that's where I think the gifting kind of rolls in. And then the thing that really pushes you is having siblings that sing as well. You always want to sing over the top of each other. You want to learn, you want to do harmony better than they do. And so we're always jockeying for position. And it was so funny, we did like a 2.5 hour thing the other day where we sang every song that we remembered from our childhood.
Wow.
Oh, that was so
It was
fun.
amazing. It was
I love
literally
that.
almost 3 hours. And
I
it
love
was,
that.
but we just kept the camera going and it was amazing. It's to have that is such a precious thing. But it was so funny because we realized, that somebody would get on their part and we were like, giving the death stare because like, get off my part,
Wait, this was the other day or when you were
Well, we were joking about it because you don't joke about it then. It's like,
right.
we were
Very
highly
serious.
competitive back then. So, but growing up in a musical family, it makes you better.
Yeah.
And you realize that, and there's so much competition during that time frame. But as you get back together as adults, you're like, you pressed me to be so much better than I am.
Yeah.
And but what you see as competition in the beginning ends up being something completely different in the end.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
Do you have something you remember that when you you either created something, sang something or whatever, to where you're like, wow, I'm actually a creative. That's my jam. Or do you consider yourself
Like a moment of realization?
Because the thing is, I still say Pastor Mark all the time.
Yeah.
It's still I still always say Pastor Mark.
Yeah.
So I know that you're a pastor, but did you get to a point where you're like, you know what, I'm a creative?
I don't think you think of yourself as creative. Like when you're in ministry, you're not trying to be creative. You're not trying to be innovative. You're not trying to do anything. You're just trying to do your job.
Yeah.
And if you put something together that's really fun, I think the joy that I got was like when Debbie or Eva or someone like that, they would have these great ideas. Like we had this one that we did where I needed angels, and they took like 15-foot PVC pipes and put angel wings to make them look like seraphim and stuff. And I was just like, and that's where the benefit that you get of collaboration. That's such a critical part of creativity, especially when you have a whole team. Is that collaborative process. A lot of people can't do it because there's always one ego in the room that says, "Yeah, we can't do it. No, I don't think you can do that."
Yeah.
Or I have a friend of mine, Darren, who they had a group of amazing animators, and there's this one kid, Johnny 5. And Johnny was just super good at what he did. And the problem with their creative meetings was they would get into that and everybody would be saying, let's do this. And Johnny, because of his river of thinking, he was like, we can't do that. Because he would always shut things down. And then, so they had to work around that and find a solution for that to help him understand, let's just blow the doors off of what we think we want to do, and then let's come back to reality. So I think that's it. But I think the person that I would blame because when you're in a church or you're, there was you're like 100 people
Right.
in a forest in the middle of
Right.
Terre Haute,
Right. Right.
It's like you're nobody to anybody at that point,
Right.
but you're somebody to 100 people.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's like I never really looked at myself as wanting to be that way. I think the epiphanous moment was when I surpassed everybody that was in leadership above me, and I was asked to lead worship for a big convention, literally 5,000 people. It was being broadcast around the world on World Band Radio in like 1 second. There were up to 40 million viewers because it was Dish Network. And so, I mean, it was a big deal. And I got up there, and I got to be honest with you, I was so terrified.
Oh my goodness.
I did not enjoy it at all.
Really?
And I finished that, and I was like, I did not enjoy that at all. I'm not gonna do that again.
I was gonna say, did it make you think never again?
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. There was so much I was thinking at that time. Well, in the 40 minutes I was up there, I was, is this going right? What's going on? What's he thinking? What's he thinking? I mean, Rod Parsley is right there, with his whole team, and Lester Summerall's right there, and these are like giants in the industry.
I love Rod Parsley.
Oh yeah, man, he's hot, and he's got amazing music, and his music leader was right there.
Man,
the guy
that's
I
pressure,
adored,
bro.
and I told him later on, I always got to show love, and I'm not that guy who's like, but it was like, it was so difficult, and we had such a fun time. But that was the moment after I got done with that. That was the peak. While I was in pastoral ministry, that was the peak. Now, when you shift, and I'm a nobody, and I've left pastoral ministry, and I went into television, and then that led me into voiceover and a lot of different things. A guy named Duncan Wardle, who was the vice president of creativity and innovation at Disney, when he was in California. That's not his role when he was in California, but he was the vice president there. And Tim O'Day, who works heavily with the Disney family in their museum in California, Tim asked me to do a little piece with him and Michael Gohegan, who's the kind of like the godfather of podcasting. I don't know if you've ever. Michael's just an amazing guy, but he was doing podcasting in 2005.
Before it was even a thing.
Yeah.
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 That's dope.
Yeah. I mean, the internet was young then.
That's dope.
It was a baby. But they asked me to do that, and then I got some work as a voiceover artist with Jonathan Park down in San Diego. But the day that I started knowing I had a really creative flair was when Disney started calling me. And Duncan would call me like once a week, maybe twice a week. And he would say, we're going to do this thing with Julie Andrews. And she's going to do this. So I need the 12 days of Christmas. But it needs to be the 12 days of whatever. I forget what it was. And I wrote it, so it was like, boom. And they loved it. It was fun. But Julie Andrews was having some issues with her voice. She'd actually had, they didn't know if she was going to sing again or not.
Yeah.
And so that was tough. But it was like, they did this one thing where they were like, they were going to do 10 of the best surprise things for people. 10 people were going to win this prize. A meal on Main Street with all the Disney characters.
Oh, that's dope.
Right? And then,
That
I know, right? And I mean, there were other things, and they were going to have a submarine, the submarine ride. I don't think they had that here, but they had it at Disneyland. But they do the submarine ride, and they were going to do a meal for your family in the submarine as it went around, like that. What they needed some names for this. So Duncan calls me up and he goes, Mark, I need some names for this. Can you help me? And I was like, yeah. So I came up with a bunch of names, and the one that made the big full color magazine that actually became one of the things was the best dive in town. And that's what they called the submarine meal for family. And when I saw that, I've actually got it in my garage right now. But it was just a full, beautiful, full page spread. The best dive in town.
That's
that was
dope.
my idea.
Yeah.
That day was an epiphanous day when they handed me that magazine, and there was my idea in full color. and it was a worldwide organization, that was the day that I said to myself, okay, maybe I'm a little creative. Maybe I am.
I love
And
it.
then Duncan just kept calling me, and he just gave me 5 or 10 really amazing opportunities. I wasn't getting paid a dime for it, but it was like, I'm doing this, and they like it.
Yeah.
This is amazing. And so that was the birthing in me that just simply said, maybe you're not just a podunk, kid out in a cornfield. Maybe you were destined for something better than this. And so that was the beginning of my career with Disney. And I've been, I've had so much more, as a contractor, as an employee, and all the way around. It's just been an amazing experience. So
I love that so
what I
much.
I was gonna say that sounds a lot like another guy from Disney.
who's that?
Oh, just some guy named Walt.
Oh, I was like, I for real didn't know who you were talking about. I was like, oh,
Oh,
that's
him.
funny.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny. The other day I was at Property Control and on Disney property, and they've got this picture up behind the counter, and Walt is sitting with his head in his hands, and he just looks so worried. It was like, I never even noticed that picture. I'm like, what a great picture of Walt, with his head on his hands, just going through the process.
Yeah.
Because it's really difficult to think beyond just like good ideas.
Yeah.
That's so
Because
true.
everyone has good ideas, or at least has at one point,
Yep.
a handful of times, some good ideas. But for that to be your living,
Oh yeah.
to like have to have a good idea and then someone's like, no, and you're like, what?
Yeah. And the process is agonizing. And I think that for years and years, Disney was going through a very difficult process. They were making it difficult. Duncan, when he came to Florida, he worked with he actually created a department called Creative Inc. And that's when he was the head of creativity and innovation, the vice president. And when that happened, he brought in, it was like he brought in for 2 years, he spent like over $1 million.
Wow.
He brought in every single person that he considered to be the most creative, like Tim Herson and What If and all these different people. And for 2 years, he brought them all in, and he was like, what constitutes creativity? And Duncan makes a living off that now. It used to be called Toy Box Training when it was with Disney, but now it's the Imagination Emporium.
Wow.
And I don't know if you guys saw the book that just came out. Have you seen me?
No,
as
so
Spark?
I follow Duncan on Instagram.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he just now recently posted when they did that
The
shadow thing in
video
the
with
mall.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I remember that. Yeah, that
but
was
when
awesome.
I first saw that, I didn't know it was him.
Yeah. And he said he did it without going all the way to the top to get approval. And I was like, bro, I'm so glad that
He was so well known for that, though, and that's why he was so
Really?
good at it. I mean, this is a guy who built an Olympic swimming pool right down Main Street.
Wow.
He put mouse ears on the Concorde.
That's funny.
Just crazy ideas like that. But
You're gonna say the book. Are you in the book? You said
I'm not. I am in the book, but I'm in the book as Spark.
Gotcha.
I'm the character Spark. I voiced Spark in the animation that they've done, and it's so much fun.
I love that.
How did you get into doing voiceover stuff?
I got into puppetry when I was a little kid, and I'm not joking you. It all started with a refrigerator box, and I was like, this is a great box. So I painted it like a blue color. I cut a hole in it. I put the curtain behind it. My mom and dad got me a bear and a hippopotamus puppet for Christmas, and I became the puppet guy in children's church. And
this is when you were a kid.
Oh yeah, I was like 12.
This all sounds like a cartoon or like a children's book to me
does.
of your
Yeah,
life
I mean,
story.
this is my journey because, and then I loved cartoons, and I love the Muppets in particular. I
saw Kermit in the garage, by
there
the
we
way.
go, and he's one of my favorites. And and at that point, that's when puppetry became really huge. And the Muppets, you know, were the full hand puppet with the rods that govern their arms and things like that. And that was also during the Jim Henson era as well. And then I started having to create character voices for these puppets. And I really enjoyed that. And through the years, you know, I just enjoyed that process. I didn't think it was going to go anywhere at that point in time. And then right beyond that was when I was a senior in high school, I won state radio speaking at my school, Hillcrest High School in Missouri. We went to Columbia University, and I won state radio speaking, which was an amazing experience all in itself. But then I started doing commercials. And from commercials, because commercials, you have to do a lot of voiceover. So voiceover is either like announcing, you know, this is Dalton Bardo. And I wasn't really doing characters in there, but I was getting my chops in the process of doing 30 and 60-second spots and things like that. And then adding music and all that, back when copyright wasn't an issue.
Right.
You know? And
oh, those were the days.
yeah, no kidding. But then once I got into media, then I started getting more involved with television, and I was doing a lot of voiceover, and I was like a co-host of a nationwide twice-a-week broadcast. And then once I made the break from television and went to California, I was sitting in my sister's fifth wheel, and I was like, I got to do something because I'm really good at this. Because I've read books to my kids for years and years, and they're like, Daddy, we love you. So Horton hatches the egg, and I'd always see these great characters for him. And I was like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. And I took an 8-track digital 8-track recorder, the BR8. I don't know if anybody knows what that is, a BR8. And I recorded every single voice that I could possibly know or remember.
Wow.
And I went through all my Muppets. I went through all the characters that were unique to me, and then I made up a few characters. And I just back to back to back to back to back, and I added some music underneath of it. And then I was just like, okay, that's it. I've got my reel. Well, that's not what a reel is. A reel is what you've done and people hired you for and you made money for, and then you end up, you know, that's your reel.
Yeah.
I didn't have a reel, so I just made a reel.
Yep. It's like today. Well, today
Right.
it's like doing spec projects. So you'll do a spec.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you want to do something with Nike, you just create a mock Nike commercial. It's like,
Yeah.
look, this is what we could do. Yeah. So like you were ahead by doing
I
that.
think I was ahead of my time.
You were
maybe.
ahead.
And what I did was I got that, and then Becky, my sister, she was like, "That's great." So my sister Becky works at the zoning office in Riverside, California. Pat Roy comes in to get a permit so we can build a garage. They get in a conversation, find out he is a writer for Jonathan Park, and she goes, "Well, my brother does voiceover." And he goes, "Well, have him send me his reel." I sent it to him, and that was my very
like, "I
first
have
job.
one."
Yeah, I have something to show you, you know.
I'm glad you asked.
I like sent it that night, you know, and he loved it. And I went into the studio and we recorded. I made so much money. Oh my gosh, I'd never made that much money for a line of, you know, whatever. And, you know, I wasn't CSAC or I wasn't any part of SAG or anything like that. It was just really crazy how I got into it. And I loved it. And from that point, Disney contacted me and got a hold of me, and I did a lot for Disney as far as voiceover, creativity. I did a lot of internal for Disney as well within the organization. You know, I would do inside commercials or inside just different things
like team stuff. Like
like Coronado built the tower, and so they needed a name for the tower. They needed names for the convention rooms. They needed a name for the restaurant, and my company did it, and so I was able to create one name for the convention center and the name of the restaurant.
I love that.
I called the restaurant Holy Toledo because it was all about color, HOLI. But what they did was they just went with Toledo's. So when you go there, my company did that. So.
That's the
I wonder how much stuff he's had his hands on that we don't even realize.
yeah.
Well, when you look at the castle and you see the projection onto the castle, that was a team that I was on at one point, and my suggestion was, you know, that here's the castle, and we throw this big huge net over the castle. We got it from Paris, and it lights up the castle. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but it's like a million lights on it, and it looks gorgeous. I said, why don't we? Because I had seen the ball that went out into the lagoon in Epcot for the illuminations, and I knew that on that ball were pixels, just these big giant things with red, green, and blue. And I said, why can't we do that with a castle? And let's make the castle a giant television screen. Yeah. And so that was my thought, because that's the way I saw it at that point in time. But 4 years later, when I was standing and the idea became use projectors to project onto the castle and make the castle a television screen at that point in time. And I mean, I was just, tears were in my eyes as I just looked, and I was like, I was part of this, you know?
I think that goes to
what we still cry every time.
The
now
girls,
I'm thinking about
the
it.
girls are like, I want to be Tinkerbell. Because I said,
oh my goodness.
That whole thing reminds me. We were talking about a little bit off camera about how the process of coming up with ideas works.
Right.
You know, maybe go into like what you were saying about how like it's yes and.
Yeah. Like whenever you go into a Disney creative,
which I think this should be everyone. Anyone that does anything creative, I feel like you should do this same thing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. I think that in the very beginning, when you're in a room, I will say this, and Tim Hurston is he is like the godfather of creativity. This guy who's written about every book possible. If anything you can get your hands on that Tim Hurston has written will help you tremendously in the creative process, and it will help you understand how your brain works and how to not think. But in the beginning, I think the rule that helped us the most was that you can't judge and create at the same time.
I love that, bro. Hold on a second. You can't judge and create at the same time. That's dope, man.
Because I mean, you have people in your little group that you get into one room and everybody's like, okay, we got to make all the plans for the year, you know, and everybody's trying to generate ideas, and it's like, oh, we got the a-thons, we got bake sales, we got all these kind of things. So everybody's trying to generate these ideas, but it's like, I think the one of the most important things is that we all have this river of thinking. And I think the one thing I learned is that one of the things I learned that was most helpful to me was in understanding that my success can be my biggest downfall. Because when you're in the room and everything you've done in your life, your resume may be a mile long, but it's like when you get into that room, you're starting to try to thrive on your success. And so you're like, yeah, we've got all these great ideas. But it's like, I think the thing that hurts you the most is your river of thinking, because you can't get out of that river of thinking. These are all my successes. I'm going to stick with everything that I know works. Yeah. And so if you can't get out of that river of thinking, it's very damaging to the whole collaboration process. It's like you have to think new, you know. And until you get rid of the old, until you are able to focus on, think of everything that you've done that's successful and set that to the side.
Wow, yeah.
That's very difficult to do. But I think that when you get into a room with all these people, what happens is there are people who have resumes, there are people who have been through 1,000 of these idea things, and they all know. And there's the person who is in charge of the finances, and there's the person who's in charge of the media, and there's the person who's in charge of whatever. And everybody starts throwing out ideas, and the first thing that people do is they just immediately say, no, that won't work. We can't do that. And, you know, it just shuts people down, it shuts creativity down. And so what we did was we came up with the rule that said, if somebody comes up with an idea, think about that idea without any restriction at all. Pretend we have no budgetary restrictions at this point in the game. You will eventually have to think about it, but at this point in the game, when you're playing, and play is so central to creativity.
Man, yes.
If you can't play, you know, because when you're playing, and Duncan he says this not too long ago. He says, "When do you come up with your best ideas?" And everybody starts saying, "When do you come up with your best idea?" Like, what's the environment that you're in?
I would say in the shower.
Shower.
I would say shower, or when I'm pooping.
When
Shower or pooping?
Pooping, okay. I'm driving when I have my
bathroom.
best
Yeah.
ideas. So that's, for some reason, driving
You know
is
somewhere else? New York, I come with a lot of ideas, or flying. I think
interesting.
it's because New York, that environment, I just love that environment. Like it's so like, but then when I'm flying, I have nothing else to do but think about stuff.
Yeah. Stare
I
at the
don't
seat.
have, I'm experiencing lack of oxygen at that point. But Duncan said this, he said, it's like nobody ever says at work. When you come up with your best ideas, nobody says at work.
I've never thought about
Because
that.
you're thinking completely differently in your work environment. And you're using a completely different part of your brain when you're at work. You know, you're trying to keep your job.
Yeah.
So you got to come up with, you know, I got to,
Man, that's
what
good.
makes sense? What would do the, and so in creativity and learning all about it, I think one of the most important things is that you have to simply say, okay, we gotta put colors in the room. We gotta get food in the room. We have to, you know, get candy bars, whatever you have to do. Make the colors different.
Oh, yeah.
You don't just meet in the room that everybody meets in for the staff meeting. Make it in the basement. Make it put it in a park. You know, to go outside. Do something completely different where you want to play.
That's so
And where
good.
play will naturally and create energizers or different things that, and I mean, there are books full of energizers and you desperately need those in times where when you sense the energy lagging in the room, okay, time for an energizer,
I
everybody.
love that. That's so smart.
Or you do things on purpose to get people playing, to get people imagining. You know, it was like, one of the guys that's creative, he gets up in front of people and they introduce him at these big conventions and he walks out and he's like, okay, everybody, here's what I want you to do. The person next to you, let's make teams. And so everybody gets into teams. All right, so you are 2 elephants and you are trying to sell this product to another elephant. Go.
That's
It's like,
interesting.
okay. and to force people in that kind of a situation is tough.
It makes you not think like you
Yeah,
like it
it's just a
forces you out
shake-up.
of your
Yeah. And guess what
Right.
happens when you relax and when you start playing, all of a sudden you get into this place where all of a sudden there are no limitations and you can't think about budget, you can't think about restraints at all. And the rule that we made was just basically yes and. Like if somebody gives an
I
idea,
love that.
somebody says something, instead of saying, or shutting it down or whatever reasoning you may have, how about you say, oh, that's good. And what if we did this too? What if we, and add to that? So it's yes and. Yeah, that's great. I like
That's
that.
interesting.
And what if we did this and did this? And it's absolutely mind-blowing what happens in a room when the rules are off and ideas are flowing and
People
you're
feel safe.
building on ideas. And here's the weirdest part, because you know, people have said, you know, there's no such thing as a bad idea, and that's definitely true with Disney. But when people say that there's no such thing as a bad idea, here's what they mean by that. When you give an idea, somebody, and I cannot tell you how many times we've been in a creative session and somebody gives an idea, and to everybody else, and to anybody else, that idea would have been just a little bit on the stupid edge, you know? But it's like, but what it did was, in my mind, I took what they said and I had an idea out of that. That was birthed out of their not so great idea.
Yeah.
But I can't tell how many times I've had the opportunity in my mind to generate an idea because they said that.
branch.
Yep,
But
it was
wait
a
a
branch,
minute, yeah.
exactly. And it works so nicely like that, where you're able to flow and you're able to generate ideas. And you would just freak you out if we would go into a Disney creative session, because everybody takes these little yellow tabs and somebody's always recording because the ideas are happening so fast.
Right.
They have to write them, they have to have somebody record them so that we can write them down and revisit them later on. Because one of the crazy things is that people always had this level of expectation. Okay, the creative meeting is this, and we're all going to meet together. We're going to come up with ideas and for the year, and then that'll be it. And it's like, it's so damaging to try to do that, to put that kind of pressure on people, because people learn differently.
Right.
There's like 12 different ways to learn, you know, and the way people learn best. So I think that you have to allow people that. And that's one thing Duncan used to do to me in a meeting. He would look at me and he'd be like, "That," and he'd be like, "Go." And I'd be like,
I'm like, don't do that.
Everyone's elephants.
Totally choke. And it took him like 2 sessions to realize I do my best, because I had created for him for 10 years to that point. But then we got in a meeting together and he was like, "And go."
Like,
and
I'm not that guy.
And I just totally choked. And so he realized that I do my best by examining everything and then letting it sit in my mind, and then I generate ideas out of that.
That's kind of how she is.
I work the same. I was thinking, I work the same way. If you ask me, you could be like, what's two? Go. I'd be like, what?
But the thing is, here's the thing about Heather is, and I think we've said this in a few podcasts, is she doesn't talk unless she has something to say. And when she does, listen. You know what I'm saying? And I love that. But, well, I'll say that when we're doing work or like, but when it's just us, that's different.
Say something.
At the house.
Right. Another thing you said that was cool is you said someone had to record it. So we always, whenever we have our meetings and all that stuff, we take these mics with us and we just record them. Because I hate when it looks like we're taking notes, and like, because it takes people out of.
Even if it's a Zoom meeting, like just, we always let people know, like,
we record it.
You know.
Because now with technology, we just, chat, transcribe this, and get out the best, like, and we've built our AI and stuff to where it knows like what we're looking for, so like it finds all the things. So like that's so cool to know that they like record everything, and then like I think that's the coolest thing, man.
I mean, it's really helpful too when you have to revisit it, because you know there's a point where you're generating ideas, and then there's a point where you're bringing them all back into 3 or 4 main ideas that are the most workable. And then once you get back to that process, then at some point, then the budget comes into it, then something comes in. Like, for instance, they contacted me and they said, we're gonna do an advertising thing on, instead of Let It Go, Frozen, let's do Let Me Go. And so I rewrote the words to the song, because I'm a jingle writer. And I had a girl from the church come in, and she had this great kid's voice, and she sang it amazingly. And they introduced it, and they found out that it was going to cost like $35,000 per time they ran the commercial. And they were like, we just can't do that.
Because of copyright, or?
Yeah, it was that. That was exactly what it was. And then when they got into it, and they got into the meetings, well, Paris was in the meeting, and Paris was like, "Hey, we like it, we'll do it." And so they had the budget for it, so they sent that to Paris. I don't even know what happened to it.
Wow.
I let go of it, and I don't
You let
even
it
know
go.
what happened to it. I just let it go.
So question, let's say with all this so far, someone's watching and they say, what if I don't feel creative? Does that mean I'm not a creative person?
Well, there's a and as anybody can tell you, there's a huge difference between feelings and reality. There are times that I feel stupid. There are times that I feel inadequate, and I feel certain ways. But then I surround myself with people that bring the best out of me. Or even it can be a singular person, or you can be somebody like I'm really much better at self-talk now than I ever have been before. But in the early days, my go-to default was I'm not creative. I'm not this person. I'm not that. And no, nobody will like this. And you're just so hard on yourself early on. But it's like, that's why being with people that you can play with really helps. And let me say this too. We did this one thing in churches. They did this thing where they hired what they call creative talent or creative artist or the pastor of creative arts or something like that. And what happened is everybody was like, whew, thank God they hired somebody because now I don't have to be creative, right? But it completely circumvented the collaborative element in it. You know, it's like you have to come up with all the ideas now. Thank God they hired somebody. It's like no. It's just the opposite. And who knows the best about everything in the church? The janitor knows everything about how the church works. The secretary is the smartest person in the building. You know, it's like, and all these different people. And what I found, like we had a business manager one time who, on the side, he did like little commercials. And it blew my mind because he came into the meeting. I'm like, oh boy, here we go, the business manager, you know, because they're very, very right brain people, you know, and very rigid and understand the budget and all this stuff. But he had the desire, he really wanted to be creative. And so it was just, he just needed permission. And I would just say, get with people who give you permission to be stupid, to get you to be imperfect, who don't care about perfection. Because perfection is a disease, man. It is a freaking disease, and I hate it.
You were talking about how like the workflow, kind of like when you're in these meetings, okay, here's the rule, yes, and. Do you think that sometimes having just more of a structure can help or hurt when it comes to creating something? I hope I asked that right, like in my head.
Give me an example of the structure.
So like, I love how you're saying, say yes, and. So let's say, when you were saying, hey, we have to come up with some plans for the rest of the year, you said that's a lot of pressure. But if you really do have to come up with creative things for, you know what I'm saying?
Like tomorrow.
Yeah. Like, do you think that helps or hurts creativity?
I think if you get in the habit of being creative, I think it becomes easier. And it also becomes, and this is the best part, it also becomes really addictive.
Yeah. Oh, I can see.
Because when you start creating and you get permission to create and play, you start thinking all the time. Not just in the car or on the toilet or in the shower. It's like you're coming up with ideas just because, and this is the rule, the rule is no input in, no creative ideas out. So I'm constantly watching YouTube. I'm constantly putting myself in uncomfortable positions. I'll go to the theater or I'll go somewhere where I'm not normally. And it's in those times that I get ideas that I wouldn't normally have because, and this is really critical here. Everybody thinks they have to come up with $1 million idea. No, absolutely not. In fact, that's like 1% of the people in this world. That's the
people on your
John
shirt.
Lennon's and the
people's on your shirt.
That's right. Exactly. These are the 1%ers right here, you know. But it's so crazy because I can't tell you how many times that I have come up with an idea because I pulled from here and here and here and here, and I was resourcefully creative. And you know, there's no idea that's new under the sun, they say, but really, if you and Henry Ford and his pals were a genius at this. Who was the inventor? The light bulb, the phone.
Benjamin Franklin? Was it Franklin?
Edison. Thank you.
I said Benjamin Franklin. What did Benjamin Franklin do? Was he electricity?
Kite.
Yep, the kite. Okay.
Kite. So what these guys did was they said that was it Benjamin Franklin? I think no, it was Edison, who used to put a penny between his knees, and then he would take a nap, and as soon as the penny would fall, he would wake up, and he would write down whatever his thoughts were.
Oh wow!
Because it was just in that beta mode, you know, where you're just in that drifting mode where you're not really your left brain isn't kicked in. And that's when he came up with his best ideas. Wow. He's the greatest creator of all time, you know. But he just, it helped him to let go of his river of thinking. It helped him to let go of his left brain thinking, and it just put him into that state where he could. And Duncan talks about this in his new book a lot. It's really good.
We got to get that book.
Yeah.
Imagination Emporium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is right brain the creative side or left? I never can remember what side is which.
If you're right brain, let's see, left brain. If you're left brain, it's cognitive. If you're right brain, you're like super creative.
Gotcha.
So and the way that they think is diametrically opposed. And so I hope I got that right.
But who knows? Like, there's so many things I said here that's like incorrect. We have to go back and look.
I can
later
Google it, but you know,
Put it on the screen. Wrong. It's this.
wrong.
But I try to be.
We were talking about having structure and if it helps or hurts. And then I thought about something while you were answering that question. Like if someone said, "Hey, we have to come up with this creative thing tomorrow," I like when there's pressure to come up with something.
Yeah.
I don't know if a lot of people are that way, but I feel like I come up with stuff when it's like, okay, listen, we got to come up with this.
We know I would not work that way.
You helped though, because we've had some stuff where we had like a tight deadline and we just kind of procrastinated.
Okay, well, let's just put it this way. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. I want to be like, no, I
Right.
quit already.
But how are you with like coming up with creative things when it's like there's pressure like that?
I'm going to give you an example. And like I said, when you were under the gun to try and come up with it, probably two of the most infamous people that hated deadlines were the Sherman brothers. And I mean, I got to meet Richard Sherman. I got a
jealous.
great picture of him. I got this great picture of Richard Sherman in a chair, and his wife came up behind him, and she put her hands on the side of his head, and she kissed him on the head. And I sent her that picture, but it was just the most precious picture. And now he's gone, so it means even that much more. But there was a time, and one of the things that we did, there's an animation building on Disney property. And when you go into these super secret meetings, you have to leave your cell phone, you can't bring your camera, you can't do this or that. But I'm a media guy, so I have to bring my stuff in. And I'm filming. And so I'm going in, and Richard Sherman with Tim O'Day, they stood on the stage, and Richard Sherman talked about the song that he wrote, how it was inspired. Then he would sing the song. Oh my God, that was the most incredible thing. I've got all the footage, and it's just incredible because he said that. Him and his brother, Walt, came back to him and his brother and said, Julie Andrews, the signature song that you wrote for Julie Andrews in Mary Poppins, said she didn't like it. She didn't. She hated it, but she said she felt like there was something better, and she didn't want that as her signature song. And so they got in, and you know, these guys throw typewriters out the windows. These guys were just infamously because they did not like to be under pressure.
Right.
But it was like this was the fire, the furnace in which they generated some of the best songs in the world and in history. And so one day they were under the gun. They had 2 weeks to write this song for Julie Andrews. And he said one day his brother came in and he said, I'm sorry I'm late. I had to take my son to the doctor. And he goes, oh, what, is he sick? And he goes, no, he had to get his immunization. And he's like, oh, I bet that hurts. You know, gonna have to get a needle. He goes, no. He said, actually, what they do now is they get a sugar cube and they put it in the little cup. And then they pour the medicine in the cup, and then they'll drink it like that. And that was the inspiration for just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. It was like, and in that environment where these guys are constantly creating, that's just a great example of people who are almost combative when it comes time to create. And that's the worst part that I don't like, because I know the anxiety that comes with that pressure. You know, when Duncan would give me a call and he'd say, I need this. And I'd say, well, how much time do I have? And he goes, 5 o'clock. And it was 11. And I'm like, okay, you know, and it was just like I just had to put myself in this place where I had to willfully just excrete somehow, figure out some way to just get that anxiety to calm down. But it's in those moments that in those moments of learning to be creative, is really what it was. It was my journey of the process that I put myself through. And, I mean, if you had seen me 20 years ago, before I was a Disney creative, my process was just garbage. I mean, I was so hard on myself, and there was so much toxicity in my creative process. And so I just started getting rid of people who were toxic, thoughts that were toxic. I had to get rid of all these different things that were working against my creative process. And some of those, I had some mental blockage as well, because I was traumatized sexually as a child. And so out of that trauma came a lot of anxieties and a lot of inadequacies and things of that nature. And some of the addictions that I had in my life, all of a sudden, those things were hurting me because it was pulling away all of my mojo, my creative juices. So when people want to be creative, you have to put yourself in a good place to be creative. And a lot of times you'll have to work on you, or you'll have to work on the things that are toxic for you. Like there were lots of people in my life that just kept me in a constant state of anxiety.
Man, that's tough.
And I had to, a couple of those people were family members.
Yeah.
And I just had to put them at hands length. You have access to me. We're family, but you're not
From
going to
over
have
there.
that much access to me.
Yeah, I love you from over there.
Right.
Yeah.
Over there. Yeah, you over there.
You
So then,
go ahead.
sorry, I was going to ask. So then, would you say that with practice, you do become better under pressure? Like knowing that there is because everybody has timelines and deadlines and all that. But would you say that with time you became better at that?
It's critical that you have lots of practice. You need lots of practice. And when you get into this place where it's kind of a Zen place where you have a process. Like now that I'm retired now. I stepped out of the work environment. But for at least the last 10 years, I've been in this place where I have been surrounded by incredibly supportive people. And if you could see Duncan nowadays, this guy went to 88 different countries last year.
Oh, goodness.
All over the world. And he stands in front of thousands of people, teaching them the process of generating ideas, not just to be creative, but to be innovative, to innovate in your environment. And he does this with people. And there is a groundswell of creativity of how to be creative that I think he's responsible for in so many ways. Around the world, we're seeing these, and I hear, like I watched a show the other night and somebody used the word ideate. And I was like, that was Duncan's word years ago. That was one of his very first words. We would go into, in fact, that's what the room where we made ideas, we would go into ideate.
I love that.
ID, the number 8.
I was about to say.
Ideate,
That's
innovate.
Dope. That's dope.
That's the name of his company. But it's like I'm starting to see all of these catchphrases that are going around that were very Disney in the very beginning. So I don't know. To answer your question, I think it's just that you get if you're in a place where you can constantly have a play attitude. I mean, in everything. You may not be generating an idea, but to not be so serious, to not be, and then some of these, in some places, they have to generate very, very serious things like weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
I know at least 2 people that were in some of our creatives. One girl, she designs rockets for Martin Marietta. Rockets that explode, that they shoot off planes and stuff. And she, in her environment, she needs that level of creativity to think in her genre.
Well,
And
you're saying, sorry, I will forget if I don't say it.
You're good.
That kind of thing is what I try to explain to people. Just because you're not painting or writing music or whatever it is, that's still, you're creating a rocket. You're creative
Yeah.
on how you have to come up with
Yeah,
that.
being
You know what I'm saying?
creative
Like,
is not one, it's not a handful of things.
I think everyone's creative.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
No, it
Oh,
is.
no, I think
And
we
it's
were
the truth.
created by the creator to be creative
Yeah.
and to not be so rigid. You're talking about how people like, it's just sad that we all, or most people just have to like get out of that. When I'm like, we were made to be living in that, and then maybe
Yeah.
sometimes be a little more rigid with certain
Yeah.
things. But I
Yeah.
feel like everything is flipped.
And we're trying to do that with our girls. We're trying to like let them be creative. Like
Yeah.
you saw, they made their little puppy ears, and
Yeah,
you know
they're
what I'm saying.
walking
Like,
around with
Unrestricted.
paper
yeah, I
ears
love
and
that.
a tail. Yeah.
The cool thing about them though is they want some things like, hey, listen, can you figure out how to a way to make, like, give them a box, kind of like create
Yeah.
it. Can you make something out of this?
Right.
And just to see them do it, I
Yeah.
love that so much.
Well, I mean, the world runs on ideas, right? It does. You can take every single vocation on the face of the planet, and every single one of those people have to generate ideas.
Yeah.
That's what creativity is, the answer to that question, which is, here's something we're doing, and we have to come up with something better. There's something we've done all these years. Now, how do we innovate?
I love that
So
much.
yeah.
You were talking earlier about consuming stuff to get ideas,
Yeah.
right? I think I'm saying that right.
Yep.
Do you think that you can consume too much to where it causes you to have, like, some people consume so much they have imposter syndrome,
I
like,
would say our paralysis.
yeah, or like, because I know I had to go through a period where I stopped getting on Instagram because I see other people that do what we do. I'm like, man, they're doing so
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
And Heather, she gets on me because I'll see something that like Michael Bay or Christopher Nolan does. I'm like, man, look at this. Why our stuff suck compared to this? She's like, they have a huge budget, and you know what I'm saying. So it's like, it's one of those things. Do you think that
Yeah.
consuming too much can cause bad things?
It depends. It depends on your level of obsession. Like, for instance, I was watching a documentary last night on George Harrison's song, "Here Comes the Sun." It's my wife's favorite song, and like, I didn't realize it, but that is like the most favorite song of everybody. It's like 1.4 billion, kind of that kind of a thing. But it was like, and this is true for pretty much all professional musicians, where that came from. But it's like, what if you could be in the Beatles? What would you do all day? Well, you would play guitars, you would sing, you would play drums. That's what your life would be. You would be constantly rehearsing, constantly honing your craft, constantly getting better. And that's all you would do, right? That's all you would do. That's why these people are so good at what they do. That's why Taylor Swift is so amazing at what she does. She's figured out how to take simple things like a breakup, or simple things like, whatever, and generate something that's going to be another great idea. And I think that when you live in that environment, and that's what you do, you're not necessarily obsessed with it, but you're like, I'd really like to make a living at this, and I'd really like to be popular and famous, and maybe be in movies or whatever. Nobody ever really starts thinking that.
Right.
They just do what they do best, and then eventually they rise to the top, and then some of them go crazy. But it's like, all they're doing is just, they have all the time in the world to do what they love to do, and to be better and better and better at it.
Yeah. Also,
Athletes are the same way.
Yeah, I just realized, because you brought up Taylor Swift, so that means you're a Chiefs fan, aren't you? You know I'm an Eagles fan.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're like, shut this all down right now.
That was I think there's only one other game that was worse than that, and that was the Denver. I was a Denver Broncos fan, John Elway, and they played the San Francisco 49ers, and they beat them like 65-7.
Man.
Oh my goodness.
That was the most painful game in the history. So that was my bar, and this was really close to that. So that game was insane.
Yeah.
Before it started, what I told him
So you
before
could
it
blame him.
They were
Tell him what I said.
He said before it started, I want this to just be a blowout. I want this to be so boring.
I want it to be the most boring
I want it
game.
to be like 50-0.
Oh, it was
And then we
boring,
got
all
to
right.
third quarter, we were like,
But
Oh.
the Eagles, they like to. But the Eagles like to do that. They'll do really good, then they'll let people come
And
back.
then
And beat them.
Mahomes and
Yeah,
yeah,
Mahomes
yeah.
does his thing, and
Yeah.
bro,
It was agonizing.
Yeah.
I loved it. I'm sorry,
was just crazy.
But they beat us. What was it? A few years ago, they beat us by 3. It was
Yeah.
7.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
year
yeah.
the girls
Yeah.
were born.
No, and you know what?
And-
They beat like 9 teams by 3.
Yeah, this year. Yeah, oh yeah.
Like doinking off the
Yes,
goal
bro.
bar, and it was just blocking a field goal. Who
Right.
blocks a
I
field
know.
goal?
I know. I was like,
Oh my God.
is this game even real?
There were just so many crazy things.
Okay, sorry. Back to. I just thought. I
Oh,
was
that
like, man,
reminds
they
me
were just-
too. I was like, we're gonna be in. I said, if the this is like
Oh,
before we even
yes.
came down here. I was like, if the Eagles win the Super Bowl, we're gonna be in the same town. They're gonna be at Disney. We should like figure out when they're gonna be there. I was like, the next day, and he's like, they're not gonna be there the next day after the
Yeah,
Super Bowl.
they
Next
do.
morning on Instagram, what do
Hurts,
I
and
see?
then, like,
Jalen Hurts in the
man.
Disney parade, and I'm like,
It's a Disney thing. I mean,
Do they always do it the next day?
yeah, it's I knew the guy that was in charge of that process. I think one year they were asking Peyton Manning and just a couple of other different people, and they were like, "Well, Peyton wants so
Tom
much
Brady.
money because they usually pay between $250,000 and $300,000, I think, something like that, just for that
they
person."
get paid to show up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like Beyonce and Oprah. You know,
Wow.
they're
Yeah.
gonna make money. So it's like when they say, I'm going to Disney World, and you've seen that commercial now. Jalen Hurts is right. He's like, I'm going to Disney World, and then they take care of everything. They pay for his hotel, they pay for his meals, they pay for his flight, they pay for everything to get there, and then they give him a check for
dope.
saying it. You know,
Wow.
it's like, and then the very next day, and I've been there that day. I think it was when Green Bay won, and Aaron Rodgers was coming through. And I was right there when Aaron Rodgers came by in the car, and it was the next day.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Very next day.
Wow.
I always
It's
told
the way they
him,
do it.
I said, if I ever win an award, like a big award, at the end, I'm gonna do my little thing, and at the end, I'm like, I'm going to Disney World.
You were talking about processes earlier. I know this is going kind of long, but if someone's watching, they're wondering, how do I figure out what my process is, like my creative process is? How do people come up with their? Because I feel like everyone's different.
Yeah. I have an answer for that, and I'll illustrate it first. When I first went to work for, I think it was like 06, 07. When I first went to work for Disney, I worked for the cruise line. I worked in HR and worked on a big project that lasted 2 years. The first thing they did was they put me with Becky, they put me with Jennifer, and they put me with Margaret. These are 3 women that thought 3 completely different ways. Becky was all about create the way that she learned best was by doing, by just hands-on doing. The way Margaret learned best was by looking at books and manuals and reading. And the way Jennifer, I forget what Jennifer was, but and she was my boss. But what they did was they put me in a room with them for just like an hour, and then they would make an assessment. They figured out how I learn best. I'm a hands-on person that I have to. I'm very. I think it's kinetic, where I have to be hands-on. I have to see it done first, and I can duplicate it that fast. You're that way in a lot of ways musically.
I was about to say that. I was like, it makes sense.
Because you're
versus-
so smart in just being a sponge and absorbing everything, and then you're like, I can do that. I can do whatever you. If you show me, I'll do it.
I love that.
You
That's-
can't
that's
teach
the way it
that.
is. No, that you have to have just like a hunger and a passion to learn, and it has to be a lifelong thing. And you've made it a lifelong thing, and that's the beauty of it. But the way that you learn best, if you cannot find what that is, and there's a lot of ways to learn it now. They have gifts tests.
Yeah.
Please let me just say this. All right. So when they hand you this gifts test, then they're like, oh, okay. Well, people start to, well, I want to sing. I want to sing. I love singing. I just sing. It's so amazing. And they can't carry a freaking tune in a bucket. But it's like, and these gifts tests, it's what they want to do that it starts, skewing the results. And so I had this lady one time, maybe you remember her, Karen Gresh.
I don't remember. That
Karen,
sounds so familiar.
Karen was this just amazing. She was a personality. She was a brilliant woman. She taught at St. Mary of the Woods College. I mean, she was brilliant, and she was so effervescent. And I really loved her life, but she couldn't sing at all. And I said, Karen, would you just get on the stage? Just be on the stage. I'm going to turn your mic off. And she's like, good. But it was like, but the way everybody thought, it was like, to be on the stage, you had to be able to sing, you had to be able to do all this stuff. And I was like, no, I want people to be inspired by her. And she loved to move and be energetic and everything. And I just let her be her. And so I did it a little bit differently. I turned her mic off. She had a microphone there, but I turned it off. And she would stand there and look like she was singing and everything. But I wanted people to just emulate her. I wanted them to feel comfortable. And so, when you're trying to find your niche, you're trying to find those things, you got to be really honest with yourself and get with people who will be honest with you so that you can find out what you love. And maybe you can be involved in music, but maybe it's that way and not the way that you expect.
Yeah, that's good.
Does that make sense?
Such a word.
Yeah, that's such a good. I feel like that's the best answer.
Yeah.
Since you first started being creative, up until now, things have changed a ton.
Oh yeah.
How do you feel? I feel like for some reason, people come to me about this, and I've told Heather, I was like, Heather, I don't want to do podcasts where we talk about this all the time anymore.
Yeah.
But how do you feel that AI is affecting creativity, or do you think it is?
Oh yeah. I think it's taking creativity, and it's taking creativity to a quantum level. Because there really, there were limitations to our creativity before, where, we can't, you could find yourself saying, well, that's just virtually impossible. We don't have the technology yet, and we can't do this. But it's like, if you have an idea, it can be done.
Yeah.
That's a crazy place to be. I mean, I know that eventually it's gonna, turn into the Terminator, but for right now, while we're here, let's enjoy this thing as much as we can. But I think it's just pulling the gloves off. I think it's going to take it to a quantum level.
I love it. So I always say I feel like that it's balancing it's leveling the playing field, I feel like, because sometimes creative people don't know how to get from A to B.
Right.
AI and chat now just helps it to get from here to here a little bit quicker. And I tell people, because we have some friends that are like, that do the stuff we do, they're like, bro, it's taking over all of our stuff. It's going to take over our jobs. And I always say, if you're worried about AI taking over your job, you probably should work more on your skill. Because all that AI is going to do is it can only output what you put into it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Been
it cannot
fed
come up
by
with any idea.
humans.
But it can also like transcribe everything. Like whenever we do our pre-production meetings with people, we can say, hey, do all this, get all the points, because we program it to know what we want it to find.
Right.
It makes that process so much faster to now our clients are like, how'd you do that?
So we can get directly to the creative part.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like it makes creatives' lives way easier.
And more efficient,
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
This is interesting. I'm just interested to hear like what you think. I would love to hear about the AI thing, but like being a creative has changed so much from when like I was a kid to now.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, you just said it, where really the only thing that AI can come up with is whatever they put in, and it's growing by giant amounts every single day.
Right.
But I think that my thoughts on it are that AI is the ultimate collaborator.
I love that.
Because it is a worldwide collaboration. We're not only collaborating with history, we're collaborating with the entirety of the base of knowledge that we have. We're collaborating with people who have already created, and their creativity, whether it's by movies or sound or music or whatever it is, about literary, anything, it's all involved in that. And now we can build on that.
Yeah.
And so there's there's like a billion things a day that are brand new.
I love that.
And that's where I talk about the resourcefulness. And AI is resourceful. It helps you be resourceful. And here's the deal. An idea doesn't have to be original in that it's a one-time deal, you know. I'm like a fiat. It's like a divine announcement, and here's this idea that nobody else came up with, you know, kind of a thing. But if you're resourceful and you come up with an idea, that is still an original idea. You can build a patent around that idea. You can build a copyright around that idea, because even though you used this, and this, and none of that belonged to you, what you created was absolutely brand new. And so that's where I think AI will be the greatest benefit to us, because of the resourcefulness, collaborative element that is makes it what it is.
Yeah.
That is so wise.
I know. We have one friend too.
I may
though.
hang on to that. And
Yeah,
be
we're gonna
like,
steal that.
Go for it.
We have a friend that
Copyright
says,
it though once
Yeah.
you do.
we have a friend who he's just completely not about AI. He's like, and I get what he's trying to say, but he teaches communication, so he feels like people are going to use AI so much that when they get in person, they're not going to know how to like communicate with each other.
Yeah.
And I can kind of see where he's going there, but
he
like,
gave a good example the other day where he was like, "You're not going to stand in front of somebody and be like, hey, chat, someone said this. How do I respond?"
but it's like, I guess people that are using chat, I just don't use chat that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
So, but it's just interesting. It's interesting getting everyone's take on AI and stuff.
Well, like whenever I get in, like I'll use AI in Photoshop and some different things. And there are some AIs that I use that they think like a computer thinks. And I'm wanting it to be Disney creative.
Yeah.
And I'm just wanting it to just spit stuff out. And I'm like, you know, maybe Grok could be that way. I don't know. But it's like, but the AIs that I've used before, I just get so frustrated with, because I'm like, show me this. And they're like, and they show me, and I'm like,
that's not even close.
Nowhere near, you know, and that's the frustrating part that I'm having with AI, is that it can't keep up with my desire to be creative, my of what I see, of what I think, you know.
You want digital and it's showing you analog.
Exactly.
And I mean,
That's
the trick
exactly
too
right.
is like
Good way to put it.
learning how to prompt chat in a way to
Exactly.
like, I was using Photoshop. Our YouTube banner right now, Heather had gray hairs, and she's like, I don't want to use that picture if you can see my gray hairs.
It's a great picture, but
So I used the Photoshop one. There was a few options it gave me, and a few of them sucked. But then there was one that landed, because once I said it a little bit differently, it like, oh, okay, and it did it right.
And it
So
was perfect.
Yeah, it's interesting how you can say something a little bit differently.
Tweak it a
It'll
little.
like.
And then the one that you were talking about looked like someone just like poured a bucket of black paint on their head. I was like, well, that's not right.
Yeah, I am the worst prompter in the history of prompting. I promise you.
But I think that I started even asking chat, I'll say, hey, listen, I'm trying to accomplish this. What's the best way to ask you in order for you to understand? And it'll ask me questions like, so you wanted this or this, this or this, and then it answers them all. I'm like, based on all this, can you come up with a prompt that I can use to get this result? And it does. So like, even this podcast, our outline we do, I came up with the prompt based on asking it questions. It's like, okay, so every episode, what do you want to happen? Like, and it goes in and it finds, like, it went through, it found your site, and it goes through and finds all these things. Here's some questions you may want to ask. Like, it's really cool.
Beautiful.
But the only thing I just put that in there and it does all of that for
me. Is this GPT?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm really heavy on that one just because I think that's the first one we like actually use and pay for.
I'm starting to get interested in Grok. So
I want to, because was it a new update or did it just now come out? Okay, because
they
I haven't messed with it yet.
jumped 2 updates.
Okay.
It's like,
I want to try it. Anyways, okay, I feel like this has been a long one, but when it comes down to it, I feel like everyone's a creative.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
which means it looks differently on everyone.
Yes.
There's no standard for it.
Right.
But how you come up with your ideas will greatly depend on if you understand the way you learn best.
Yeah.
That's smart, man. That's so smart.
Critical. Yeah.
I learned with her that I can't just say, hey, we need to do this. This is the idea. Can you just go do it? She needs to have a list of, you know what I'm saying? She's very,
she needs bullet points.
Yeah. And I'm the complete opposite. So we would get in arguments our first, like when we were first working together, because I was like, bro, I just said this. I just want you to do it. And then I started realizing, oh, everyone doesn't just like,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, my
Which
dad
is-
did the same thing when I was younger. He'd be like, think.
Yeah, I feel like I said that to you.
Just think what he said. Think.
But he would never tell me, he would never walk me through a process
Oh, right.
whereby I deduct the answer,
Mhm.
and that was just like really frustrating.
Mm.
Yeah.
Man, anything? Did we miss anything?
I don't think so.
I feel like this is
This
so.
was
I feel like I
fun.
learned so many stuff, and there's gonna be so many quotes that you see pop up on my social now that come from this.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Make sure to
I
tag
know.
him. But
Um,
we love you. I don't think we mentioned earlier, you are probably you're talking about having a team of people who support you. You are probably our OG supporter.
Yeah.
Like you have
Yeah.
supported us the
Fun.
longest, more than anybody,
That's
more than
true.
Oh,
family, friends. You have been there since beginning.
well,
So
I believe in you guys.
That's
I
so
mean,
true.
you were both insatiably starving for more information about how to be better, how to do things better, it's just amazing to watch you
thank you.
be the amazing people that you are. But, to see where you started, seeing those pictures is so fun. But you guys have this incredible desire to want to get along. You love each other. You want the best for each other. You are best friends. And your daughters are picking up on that, and they will just be an amazing version, better version of who you are.
Yes.
And
Better.
I'm so excited to see, where they land because of your investment into them and the next version of Brown
Yeah.
V2.
Man, I appreciate that. There's something.
That'll
There's
be our
something else
third
that.
child's name.
Oh, okay.
Boom.
Here we go. So we do brand keywords, and one of them is inspiring. I can't remember which one of the
Yes.
ones, but we really base that on how we feel after we hang out with you, because you're one of these people to where we always feel better after we hang out with you.
Yeah.
And that's
I feel better too.
That's one of
I
our.
feel so much better.
That's one of our things. Is like we want every time someone hangs out with us to feel better than when they showed up. And like you and Trish were one of those people that like. I remember we drive back because we always drive down to Florida from Nashville, but we come back and we'll be like, "What was it? Why do we feel so good after hanging out?" Because we go to thanks you guys. We go to Disney. You know what I'm saying? We do this, but our highlight is always when we get to hang out with you guys, even if it's a little bit of time. We're like, what was it about them that spending that time made it feel so like? And I still don't know what it is you guys do, but we're like, we have to put that in our
Something in here.
in our
of you.
how we make clients when they're around us,
Yeah.
or just people in general. We want to make sure they always feel better when they leave. So you do that for us.
Thank you very
Love
much.
all around.
I think when 09 came around and everybody lost their jobs and everybody started going down, it was like I had to reinvent myself in that time frame. That's when I started my business, my first business, and it was really crazy because it was like I had to become whatever I needed to be in order to do that. I remember I watched the guy one time. It was the guy who invented the super soaker, and he was like, you know what, you gotta be who you gotta be in order to get the job done. And he said, sometimes you're gonna have to do a lot of different things. And then I picked up a book. It was called Think Like Da Vinci. It was when Duncan was going through those 2 years, and Think Like Da Vinci basically said that. And it kind of went with fivefold ministry, but it was like, you need to be like Da Vinci in the way that he was good at math, he was good at art, he was good at technical things, he was good at so many different things, but you need to try to be well versed in everything, not just what you're good at. Or what your natural proclivities are. And so I started trying to, and what it did was it got me out of my river of thinking. And I just don't think people realize how critical it is that you get out of your path. And the only way to do that is to get new information. Go take a class in something that you have no desire to learn. And then once you start getting out of what you're good at and get into something that you're not good at, it allows you the privilege of coming up with new ways to think, and it expands I mean, all those neurotransmitters in your head are, when you're doing something you've never done before, you're doubling neurotransmitters in your head every single second. And so it's important to do new things you're uncomfortable with, things that you wouldn't normally do. But I mean, if you don't do any of that and you just still stay doing what you're doing, it's like, you know, being a person having a life isn't just living the same day over 70 years in a row.
Wow.
It's like, you want a life,
Yeah.
and you got to do things that you're uncomfortable with in order to do that and make that happen.
Bro, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. You killed this.
Bro, what?
Was it easy?
What?
See, this is easy.
Yeah.
I love that.
Very
Man,
fun.
I can't wait to watch this one.
I know. We need to do the intro real quick.
I'll check focus on you so you can do it.
Okay.
We'll just do something like, hey, everyone's creative. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Something like that. You're going to do it because I did the
I need to
last
sit forward because all of a sudden, the
I'll check
last
focus real
minute, the sun was like, hey, eyeballs.
one. Dad, you didn't hit record.
I never even knew the sun came over here.